Good morning, everyone. Today is Monday, June 13th, 2022. I'm Crystal Dawn Hill, and this is part two of a video that I just did part one of about doubting our journey. So I had completely lost my train of thought in part one, and I tried to pause it again, but I stopped it instead because I couldn't tell if it was actually recording or not. So um, I regathered my thoughts and got a fresh cup of coffee, and I'm ready to go into what I left off at, which was a little bit about how the twin flame and the divine partner journey works, the connection. So, what I was about to say was that when it in the connection, we experience it in the core, and then it also manifests outwardly. And these two things are very different. And maybe because of the shift that I've gone through, this is introducing me to a new part where those two things come into balance. And if that's the case, then I have a long road ahead of me. But for right now, I'm just focusing on how I'm feeling today, looking back over the past 3.5 years that I've known my divine masculine. So, what I was going into was that internally, in our connection, we can be dealing with the same thing, but externally, we deal with it in a polarized way. So, speaking specifically about what I'm talking about today, is you have the same polarized trait, but it manifests opposite. And I know I'm struggling with what I want to say here. Um, and it's because I want to make sure that I'm saying it out loud to gather my thoughts so that when I say it, it comes out and makes perfect sense. When I say it for real, instead of just talking it through. In other words, I guess I may be helping the listener um, go through the steps of it with me. Because, like I said in the first part, I want to show you where this thought process is coming from. So, if I'm experiencing this extreme amount of confidence and trust in what I know, in what I was shown, and not doubting like I did all the rest of my life, then perhaps he's reached a point where he's starting to feel um, doubt and is questioning everything. What I was getting so excited and emotional about right before I stopped the video was if he's questioning, if he's really started to question um, in his mind or in his heart or in his psyche, what is this? Why is it lasting so long? Why has she not just given up on me by now? Why is it that it's this connection still here? You know, if those kinds of questions are raising in his mind, that's a great thing. And it's part of his journey. And at the same time, my part of the journey is having overcome those times before when I would doubt. And maybe that's what the whole silence thing is about. And the reason I really started this video this morning was because I was asking myself questions too. Like I heard a counselor on TikTok saying, um, someone who gives a silent treatment is being manipulative. And that doesn't resonate with me, with my divine masculine, because even if we are unintentionally being manipulative, it's to get us to the next step. It's to get us to the next level. It's not to try to bend the other person to have our way. It's just to reach this point of reconciliation or balance. And the other thing, the silence brings up stuff for me from my past because, um, of being around people, romantic couples who would give each other the silent treatment. And, that's kind of a trigger for me. But not to get too far off of what I was saying, is that the beautiful thing about this is through my whole journey, I dealt with things in a singular way, in the state of singularity, me, myself, and I. Um, Looking back over things and wondering about the reality of it, wondering about the validity of my intuition and my thought processes and my very experience. And now I think this big shift is putting us in a state of unity to where everything is experienced together as a unit, even though we're still physically separate from one another. We're experiencing this journey in a state of unity. And that's what really came up in my mind that moved me to tears in the first part. Because if that's the shift that I was feeling, then that means the scales were tipped and we reached the point of no return where we're in this together for the duration. And if it took the silence to birth the new level, then it's worth it. I'm getting sidetracked again, but again, I think this is very important. When our divine partner does things that we don't agree with or that we don't understand, the last thing we should be doing is questioning their decision or their choice or their perspective. I mean, it's okay to be curious about it and inquire about it and be inquisitive, but not to judge it or to assume that they're not making the right choice, because they're you. And if you're trusting that your decisions are right, even if they don't agree with it, then you shouldn't be questioning theirs. This is the whole premise of what partnership means. True partnership, true divine partnership, is when you love each other unconditionally, but that isn't all of it. It's so much more to it. You have to trust that person with your life. You have to know that your life is in their hands as much as their life is in yours. And for me, I know without a doubt that he and I are here for each other. Like that song that I just stumbled across the other day, Helplessly Hoping. It says, we are one person, we are two alone, we are three together, and we are for each other. What I believe that lyric means is we are meant for each other. We are meant to be there for each other. And another thing that comes to mind is something my dad would always say. When I was married to each of my two husbands, and my dad and I would be ending a phone call, or we would be going different ways after a visit, he would always say, take care of each other. And because I wasn't married to the right people, I didn't understand what that meant. Like, I was like, I would think to myself, I wouldn't talk to him about it or ask him what he meant, because I didn't want to come across as being disrespectful to him or questioning him. And isn't that interesting? I didn't want to disrespect or question my dad, but I have God. Maybe that's a lesson for me too. But in my mind, I would. In my mind, I would question it and be like, well, doesn't he already know that we're kind of taking care of each other already? But as I got older, I began to understand that he didn't mean in the physical sense. He meant emotionally, like look out for each other and care for each other. And I couldn't have understood that until I met my beloved. And then it all made sense. When I met him, everything made sense in my whole entire life. I keep rambling and getting sidetracked, and if you're still hanging in there and listening, thank you. And this is how I roll sometimes. I just have my coffee or my tea, and I just chit chat, and I talk as though you're sitting right here in my living room with me and we're just having a friendly visit. You know, that's how I'm most authentic, and that's how my genuine and sincere thoughts just come out. When it's unfolding in my mind in real time and it comes out and I look at it, and that's when it's the most poignant and the most organic and the most beautiful. So, going all the way back to the beginning of this part of the video, where I was going to elaborate on where I left off in the first part, I got so sidetracked from the part when I was talking about how we deal with something internally at the core, but then externally it looks very different. And where I went after that was important as well, where I was talking about the big shift going from being in a state of singularity to being in a state of unity. And I'm getting stuck there again because I just want to relish in that understanding that that's where we've reached. And I also want you to see that when you reach these points in your journey, these points of awareness and understanding, it's like reaching the top of a mountain and looking down and just taking in the breathtaking views. That's how it feels. I mean, I've never gone all the way up to a mountaintop and looked down, but I have driven up high enough to where I could look down in the valley and see the beautiful view, and that's what I'm likening it to. It's very breathtaking. And I honestly don't think I would have reached this understanding if I had tried to write this in a post or even in my journal. Maybe because I'm trying to imagine if I had written all this down in my journal, it would have probably I would have been sad because I would have been looking at it going, is anyone ever going to read this? This experience was mine and mine alone. But this way, others can partake in this experience and witness me reaching this new understanding. And hopefully it will inspire you to push through the times where you feel stuck or where you feel like you're questioning or giving up. It's worth these moments of new understanding. And for me, this is the biggest. Because if you can bear with me while I share just a little bit of the backstory of my journey, and I'm going to take a sip. I need one really bad. In the beginning of my journey, I was shown an approximate time period, like a middle waypoint. And when I was shown that, I was like, please no, don't let it be that long. But the 3.5 years was about approximately the middle waypoint. And it's gone by much faster than I would have imagined. But I wouldn't trade one moment of it for anything because it's getting us to where we need to be. If you set out on a destination and you just take the interstate, you might get there quicker, but the trip will be less enjoyable. You won't have the scenery, and you won't have the opportunity to pause and reflect. Like if you take the country roads and you get to see all the beautiful scenery and more opportunity to stop and rest and relax and decide what your next part of the journey is going to be. And that's what we do on this journey. We don't go it alone. Even if we're physically alone, we're not doing it alone. We're doing it with the help of each other and with our higher guidance. And like the song says, we are three together, and it's so true. And anyone who isn't on this journey is not going to understand that. Yeah, they might conceptually understand that they have God guiding them, but they're not going to understand it on an experiential level unless they've been blessed with the miracle of their divine partner in their life. And I don't mean to idolize the twin. It isn't about idolizing them. It's about understanding the power of the Holy Spirit, and that Spirit can enter the essence of a person and present itself through that person to interact and to engage with their beloved through the other human. I believe it's why in the beginning stages of the twin flame journey that it presents itself through various people. And this goes right back to the part about the questioning. And yeah, I livened up a little bit because I see where my higher guidance is trying to take this now. Is when you go through a part of your journey thinking that one person is your twin or your divine mate, and you look back and that person is gone out of your life, and you wonder, like, where did that, what was that? Why did I think it was that person? You weren't wrong. You weren't mistaken. That person was the one you were meant to be with at the time. They were meant for you to love them. And they were a conduit for the twin flame energy. So my point in what I'm talking about my own journey is I've reached that point that I no longer question that. And another beautiful thing that I just realized is what I was about to say just a moment ago when I was going back to the beginning. I was going to share a little bit of the backstory. Is in the beginning of my journey with my divine partner, I was shown that he would always be at least in my peripheral of my life. And I've never shared that openly. I've told personal friends, and I've had new understandings about what that meant, but this is the first time I've ever shared that publicly, that I was given that information in the beginning. And when you reach the point in your journey where you know without a shadow of a doubt that this is the person, there's no room for anyone else past them. You see them there for all of eternity, backward and forward, up and down, in and out, everywhere. You're surrounded and inundated by their essence, without a doubt. And being the Capricorn and logical, rational person and needing that physical proof or evidence, I still say that I trust the divine, and if this person is meant to be in my life, they will. And if they're not, then someone else will step in. But the difference is, which Spirit tells me, all of my life, for the past 20 years, I've had a few cases of mistaken identity. And when I would look at that person, I would feel someone beyond them. I would feel that I hadn't reached my destination. And when I would go in and meditate on it, God would say, there's someone else. God would show me a different energy. And sometimes that energy was haunting, and sometimes it was a little daunting, and sometimes it was pure and beautiful, and it was light. But it was always the same energy. And when I met that energy in the flesh, there was no one else. There never had been, and there never would be. And I hope you made it all the way to this point, because this is where Spirit wanted me to take this message. This is the message that He wanted me to deliver to my audience. That this is how the journey looks when you get beyond that point of where you questioned, where you get beyond that point of not being 100% sure that they're the right person. We all go through those stages of questioning. We all go through those stages of misidentifying someone as our beloved. What I'm here to say is, down deep inside your soul, you know. And now my voice isn't shaking as much because I'm not quite as an emotional, sad, melancholy kind of emotional, but now I'm happier. But now I'm so happy that I'm nervous and excited, and now I feel like my lip is quivering. So here it is. If you were in my living room and I was unpacking a new download, this is how it would look. Whether we were just sitting quietly and you were watching me write in my journal, or if I was sharing with you about it, this is how it would look. This is how it unfolds in my mind. And if you stuck with me through the whole 2-part message, then thank you. I'm so grateful that you're on this journey. Um, and I'm so happy that you're following along my journey. I wish you the very best along your journey as well. And even though we may not know each other, even though we may not be doing this journey physically side by side, we're all doing it together as one in unity. And when you meet your divine partner and you know there's no more room for question or doubt or uncertainty, then you too will go through these types of stages and shifts and new awakenings, and you too will enjoy the bliss and the euphoria and the absolute miracle that this journey affords us all. Blessings, everyone. Thank you again, and have a wonderful day.